Hello everyone and Happy New Year! As many of you might know, over December of 2021, Toei Animation claimed and blocked over 150 of my videos. This translates to over 3 years worth of work being removed from my channel that both myself and my team worked hard to create. Following those events, I tried everything from reaching out to YouTube support specifically to making videos addressing it explicitly. With all of you guys helping to amplify my voice, thank you again by the way, as it is because of you that I have good and interesting news to give today. A lot has happened since I last addressed this scenario back in mid-December, so I will be filling you all in on everything that has happened since, and let me tell you, a lot has happened, some really weird, some really good, and a lot that I didn't even know about. As usual, I will try to keep this as brief as I can. In mid-December, I released a video stating that I would be stepping away from this entire situation. A lot of you found this abrupt, and it was. However, I assure you that it wasn't a decision made for any other reason than those stated in the video. The circumstances surrounding my videos being taken down weren't the only things that I had to contend with that month. I'm eager to share with you all the details of my professional troubles, however, I don't want to get into the personal stressors that existed during that time. Just know that they were a large contributing factor that forced me to take a step back. Now, onto some new stuff. Following my last upload addressing this situation on December 11th, the very next day on December 12th, someone high up at YouTube who had requested I keep their identity withheld reached out to me personally on Discord asking if they could hop on a call with me. From this point on, I will be referring to this person as, quote, my YouTube contact or contact. I immediately hopped onto this call with the YouTube contact, and right away they accepted responsibility for this not being escalated sooner. I had in the past reached out to numerous YouTube support personnel through the proper channels, all to no success and to tons of stress. The YouTube contact expressed that this should never have been left unanswered as long as it was. And I'm not gonna lie, hearing a human voice that felt both sincerely eager to help and understanding of this impossible situation felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And that's when they gave me some information concerning this situation I was not aware of. My first experience with this whole Toei situation began when I first received those copyright notices via email. However, my contact informed me that there was much more to that story than what happened after I received those copyright emails. Firstly, prior to any email being sent to me, Toei Animation sent YouTube directly over 150 takedown notices. These are requests to YouTube not to block my content, but to delete them off of my channel, which would lead to strikes right off the bat and likely would result in the termination of my account, and that's bad. But this is where I want to give YouTube some credit. In response to this request, YouTube, as per their policy, did not remove the videos, but rather requested Toei to confirm that they had considered exceptions to copyright, such as fair use and fair dealing. In other words, YouTube looked at my content and felt that the videos might qualify for such an exception. Courts have decided that copyright owners must consider fair use before they send a takedown, and so they passed the ball back to Toei to provide further reasoning. And this is where this gets interesting. In response to this, Toei broke YouTube's policy, and instead of responding with a justification for their takedown notices per YouTube's request, they instead used their own tools behind YouTube's back to manually claim and block each and every one of the over 150 videos in my catalog of content, effectively achieving the same result minus the takedown of my channel. This is what resulted in the 150 emails I received alerting to me of this in the first place. So, in short, Toei explicitly broke the rules in this instance. It is important, however, at this time to point out that had Toei provided an argument that the videos were infringing under Japanese law, YouTube would have likely honored their removal, removed the videos worldwide, and potentially struck out my channel. YouTube's justification for following this notice and takedown process ultimately boils down to YouTube wanting to retain their safe harbor status. If they lost this status, they would be picking a side and thus open themselves up to countless lawsuits from all angles. But in this instance, Toei broke the rules of YouTube's copyright policy, which made every single one of those copyright claims and blocks that Toei filed against me null and void. And this might sound great, and following this conversation over the days that followed, I technically had all of my videos back under my control and technically fully monetizable, but as my contact informed me, we were far from out of the woods yet. They said that if I were to put all the videos back up as they were, I would run a massive risk of opening myself up to the exact same thing happening again, and perhaps this time Toei would provide that justification they needed last time. If they did this, then my videos would be deleted and perhaps my channel too. Fair use is a defense that makes sense in most countries, and certainly the ones I broadcast to specifically. However, the Japanese interpretation of these exceptions is less robust than most of the rest of the world, which is why I made all of the claimed videos private so that I could buy time to understand my options. Over the next week, my contact jumped into a number of different meetings and indirect correspondence with the Japanese YouTube representatives communicating with Toei to try and mediate some sort of understanding. Initially, they wanted to see if it was possible to establish a meeting between myself and a rep from Toei. However, the idea was quickly discarded for a number of reasons. Following this, YouTube asked Toei Animation to review all of my videos they requested takedowns for, since some of them clearly didn't use any of their footage. And this is when something incredibly surprising and concerning occurred. Toei obliged and made a list of 86 videos that they said should stay down, with the implication being anything that wasn't on this list could go back up. My contact shared this list with me and asked me to review it, and what I found was honestly baffling. Contained in this list were frankly the most arbitrary assortment of videos I had ever seen. It honestly appeared as though someone chose videos at random, as if chucking darts at a dartboard. For example, my first video in which I drew characters in a particular style was included on this bad video list, but the second episode, which had literally the exact same style, format, and volume of content, wasn't. To add to the confusion, some parts of my Dragon Ball review series were requested to be taken down, while others, which were part of that same review series, were not. And to keep in mind, these are videos that were edited in the exact same fashion as the part which wasn't allowed. The same is true for my One Piece series. Some of it was to be taken down, while others weren't. And as I continued reading this list provided by Toei Animation, I became more and more confused. So much so that I wrote up a 4-page document expressing my concerns and the issues I saw with it. In the interest of transparency, I will read my closing statements from that document where I reviewed the aforementioned list to give you all a taste of where my head was at the time. I was not happy. Quote, "This is where I am going to stop going through these videos. Simply put, either they're all okay or they're not. My most charitable reading of these decisions is that those at Toei Animation tasked with this assignment quite literally have no excuse at this point for producing such an incoherent and incomprehensible list of unacceptable and acceptable videos. Toei have in their very own list demonstrated that they do not understand the task or rules that they are asking others to abide by. This list is rife with contradictions and incomprehensible choices that I personally find as both a head of a household and a company deeply disturbing. If Toei doesn't know the rules of their own game, then how can they possibly justify this behavior?" End quote. And that's about as far as this situation got before the holiday break both in Japan and America. And there wasn't any more to report until the first week of January 2022. Following this, my YouTube contact held meetings with numerous other YouTube personnel trying to find some solution to this existing issue. I should make it known at this time that I have never spoken to Toei Animation, nor have they reached out to me personally at any time. Everything I am telling you concerning their actions comes via 4 degrees of separation, where their team communicates with the Japanese YouTube team, who communicates with the American YouTube team, who communicates with my YouTube contact, who then relays all of that info back to me. However, time and again, YouTube would encounter the same pushback from Toei, who, I presume, see me as no different than the people who upload the Dragon Ball films in full on YouTube. They see me as a pirate. And in short, it appears to be that Toei doesn't believe that there is an acceptable application of their content online with regards to fair use, which is extremely unfortunate, as I believe, similar to how video games have embraced the online sphere, I sincerely believe that a collaborative or symbiotic relationship between online creators and copyright owners is not only more than possible, but would likely work extremely well for both sides if they were more open to it. And the way that they're going, it's my belief that it will only hurt both parties, perhaps more so than they believe is possible. And look, this is just my opinion, but I genuinely believe that had it not been for Team 4-Star and their Dragon Ball Z Abridged series, Dragon Ball wouldn't have remained nearly as popular in the Western world during the time where not much new content surrounding the property was being released. And that's not to slight the works or efforts of official sources. They do an incredible job, but is to speak to the opportunity that's being left on the table, perhaps without proper consideration. With all that said, that left me in a difficult position. Without Toei willing to budge on the matter, if they were to file a lawsuit in Japan, then in a Japanese court it's possible I would have little chance due to the very narrow application of their version of fair use. And this is where YouTube did something they have never done before. a move that has added a brand new step in their copyright policy or protocol. And while this is a policy YouTube uses in other legal removal areas, it's the very first time they're applying it to copyright. Okay, so a legal copyright removal has to consider fair use or other copyright exceptions, right? My videos are delivered in English and clearly are targeted to those in the Western world, and so YouTube removed the videos in Japan because, given their limited application of copyright exceptions, Toei might see this as infringing in Japan. However, YouTube felt that the videos could reasonably qualify for a fair use exemption in most of the rest of the world, so the content will remain up everywhere else until or unless Toei can make an argument that it would not qualify for copyright exemption in other territories. In short, since Japan isn't a demographic I even attempt to target and didn't have the capability of abstaining from uploading to in the past, YouTube has elected to block my videos in Japan so that if they wish to block those videos in the future, they will have to do so in a country outside of Japanese law, thus giving me what I believe to be a fair chance. And well, that's where we are now. Following the release of this video, I will be making public all of the videos that were once blocked, and only time will tell what the future will hold for my channel and what Toei may or may not do. My hope is nothing, but given how unpredictable this entire situation has been, who knows what might and, as I've mentioned, very well can happen. But something I do want to say is that while I am perfectly willing to and have pointed out in the past shortcomings of YouTube as a platform in supporting its creators, I will also point out experiences I've had where without them I would have honestly been lost. This is such an occasion. YouTube isn't one entity, it's a massive group of people that have all different opinions and backgrounds. I can't speak to the quality of everyone working at YouTube, but I can say that the people I've been in contact with over the last month following my going dark on social media have been some of the kindest and most eager to help people I've ever spoken to that have expressed a genuine desire to help me, have worked tirelessly to help me find a solution in this almost impossible situation, and perhaps most importantly, I think their heart is in the right place. Again, I cannot speak for everyone's experience with YouTube and their respective personnel, and I have been very, very vocal about their shortcomings, particularly in this situation early on, and I still think a lot of work needs to be done to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. People shouldn't need to create a storm to get attention, but I think it's also important to champion the good that they do when they do it, and in this situation, they sincerely helped me greatly.